I still remember the morning my life changed. I woke up early, excited and nervous. It was supposed to be my first day at Brightwave Marketing, the company I had dreamed of working for. I had worked hard for years, unpaid internships, long nights, and hundreds of rejected applications. Finally, I had my chance. But when I checked my email, there it was, a short message from HR saying my job offer had been reconsidered. My hands started shaking. It didn't make sense. I had signed the offer letter, filled all the forms, and even spoken to my manager the day before. I called the company right away, hoping it was a mistake. The woman on the phone sounded uncomfortable. She said, "I'm sorry, Rachel. We were told you accepted another position, so we had to move forward with someone else." I froze. I hadn't accepted anything else. When I asked who told them that, she hesitated before saying, "Your mother reached out to us directly." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My own mother had called my employer and told them to cancel my offer. Why? I drove straight home, shaking the whole way. When I walked in, my sister Lily was sitting at the table, smiling. "Guess what?" she said. "I got a job at Brightwave Marketing." My heart dropped. Mom looked so proud, like nothing had happened. When I asked her why she did it, she just said, "Lily needs this more than you do. You'll find something else." I couldn't believe it. I had spent years trying to build my future, and in one call, she gave it to my sister. That night, I packed a small bag and left. I didn't even know where I was going. I drove until I ended up outside my best friend Tina's apartment. When she opened the door and saw me crying, she didn't ask questions. She just said, "Come in." That night, I told her everything. She listened quietly and then said something I'll never forget. "You don't get revenge by fighting. You get it by proving them wrong." So that's what I did. I found a temporary job at a small startup. It wasn't much, but I worked like my life depended on it. I handled everything: marketing, social media, clients. I stayed late, learned fast, and within 6 months, I became the head of the marketing team. My campaign ended up getting national attention, and suddenly people were calling me instead of ignoring me. One of those calls was from Brightwave. They said they'd been following my work and wanted to offer me a senior position. I accepted, not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted to close that chapter. When I walked into the office, I saw Lily. She looked tired and stressed. Later, I learned she had been struggling for months. Her projects were failing, and her team didn't respect her. I didn't gloat. I just did my job quietly. That evening, Mom called me and said, "Lily told me you're working there now. Can you help her keep her job?" I took a deep breath and said, "No, Mom. I can't." For once, I chose myself. And it felt like freedom. For most of her life, Rachel had believed that hard work always paid off. She wasn't the smartest or the luckiest person in the room, but she never gave up. While her friends partied, she spent nights working on projects and sending job applications that often went unanswered. Some days, she wondered if all her effort was even worth it. But deep down, she believed that something good would come if she just kept pushing forward. When she finally got the email from Brightwave Marketing, her hands trembled as she read it over and over again. "We're pleased to offer you the position." Those words felt unreal. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she realized she had finally made it. It wasn't just a job. It was proof that all the sacrifices, sleepless nights, and quiet tears had been worth something. She ran downstairs to tell her parents, expecting them to be proud. Her father smiled and hugged her. He told her she deserved it. But her mother's reaction wasn't what she expected. Instead of excitement, there was a strange stillness in her face. "Brightwave? That's a big company," her mom said slowly. "Are you sure you can handle it?" Rachel brushed it off, thinking maybe her mother was just being cautious. That night, Rachel sat at the kitchen table, talking about her plans, the people she'd be working with, and the apartment she wanted to move into. Her father listened proudly, but her mother kept glancing at Lily, her younger sister, who sat quietly scrolling through her phone. Rachel didn't notice at first, but Lily's expression wasn't happy for her. It was bitter. Lily had always been different. She was outgoing, charming, and used to getting what she wanted easily. But lately, things hadn't been going well for her. She had lost her job at a boutique agency, and her attempt to start an online business had failed. Their mother worried constantly about her, saying Lily just needed a little push. A few days later, Rachel overheard her mother on the phone with someone. "Lily just needs one chance," she said softly. "She's so talented. She just needs to be in the right place." Rachel didn't think much of it at the time. She assumed her mother was just being supportive. At dinner that week, the tension was thick. Rachel tried to talk about her upcoming start date, but her mother kept changing the subject to Lily's problems. How she wasn't sleeping, how hard she'd been trying. "It's not fair," her mom said at one point. "Lily's been through so much. She deserves something good too." Rachel stayed quiet, not knowing what to say. She didn't realize that her mother's idea of something good was about to come at her expense. When Rachel went to bed that night, she felt uneasy. She couldn't explain it, but something didn't feel right. Her mother's strange tone, Lily's silence, the way conversations shifted whenever she mentioned her job, it all lingered in her mind. Still, she told herself she was just overthinking. Her family loved her. They'd always been proud of her achievements. She had no idea that behind the smiles and quiet dinners, a plan was forming. One that would soon take away everything she had worked so hard for. The night before Rachel was supposed to start her dream job, she laid out her clothes neatly on the chair by her bed. A navy blazer, white blouse, and the heels she had saved up to buy. She couldn't sleep much. Her mind was full of excitement and nerves. After years of trying, her new life was about to begin in the morning. Around 10 p.m., her phone buzzed. It was an email from Brightwave's HR department. The subject line read, "Regarding your offer." At first, she thought maybe it was a reminder about her start time or paperwork. But as she read it, her stomach dropped. The message said her job offer had been reconsidered, and that the company had decided to move forward with another candidate. Rachel read the email again and again, trying to make sense of it. How could this happen? She had already signed the offer letter. Everything was confirmed. Her start date, her desk, even her ID badge, all done. Her heart started racing. She immediately called the HR manager she had spoken to before, hoping this was just a misunderstanding. The woman sounded uncomfortable. "Rachel, I'm really sorry about the confusion," she said. "But we were informed that you accepted a different job offer, so we had to move quickly and fill the position." Rachel froze. "That's not true," she said quickly. "I never accepted another job." "Who told you that?" There was a long pause on the line before the woman replied. "Your mother reached out to us. She said she was helping you handle your communications while you transitioned." Rachel's heart sank. Her mother? Why would she do that? Her voice shook as she said, "There must be some mistake." But deep down, she already knew it wasn't. She hung up and sat there for a long time, staring at the wall. The excitement she'd felt all week turned into a heavy ache in her chest. She couldn't understand why her own mother would ruin something she had worked so hard for. The next evening, Rachel went home for dinner, still hoping there was an explanation. When she walked in, she saw Lily sitting at the table, smiling brightly. "Guess what?" Lily said, her voice full of excitement. "I got a new job at Brightwave Marketing." Rachel's breath caught. Her mother's face lit up with pride as she said, "Isn't that wonderful?" They must have realized Lily was a better fit. For a moment, Rachel couldn't speak. She looked at her mother, searching for guilt or remorse, but found none. Her mother only said, "Sweetheart, you'll find another job soon. Don't take it so personally. Families help each other." Rachel felt something inside her break. She stood up, her hands trembling. "You didn't help me," she whispered. "You destroyed me." Then she walked out of the house, her dream gone. Not because she failed, but because her own mother had chosen her sister's happiness over her future. Rachel couldn't move. The room felt smaller, heavier, like the air itself was pressing down on her. Her mother sat across the table, calm and composed, as if what she had done wasn't the worst thing a parent could do. "Lily needs it more," she said gently, like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. "You'll understand one day when you have your own family." Rachel just stared at her, trying to find the words. But there weren't any. Her throat tightened, her hands trembling under the table. She had always believed her mother wanted the best for both of them. But in that moment, she realized she had been wrong all along. Her mother didn't see them as equals. She saw Lily as the one who needed saving, and Rachel as the one who could be sacrificed. Lily leaned back in her chair, a small smirk forming on her face. "It's just business, Rach. Don't be so dramatic." Her voice was light, careless, like she hadn't just stolen her sister's future. Rachel's eyes filled with tears, but she refused to let them fall. "You let her take my job," she said quietly, her voice shaking. "You called them and lied. How could you do that to me?" Her mother sighed, as if Rachel was the one being unreasonable. "I did what was best for the family. You're strong, you'll find something else. But your sister was falling apart. She needed this." That was the moment Rachel stopped seeing her mother as her protector. All those years she had believed in fairness, in love, in the idea that family stood by you. It all fell apart in seconds. She looked at Lily, who avoided her eyes, and then back at her mother, whose calm face hid no guilt. Rachel stood up, pushing her chair back so hard it scraped the floor. "You didn't do this for the family," she said quietly. "You did this because you've always chosen her." Her mother looked at her, almost annoyed. "Don't talk like that. You're being ungrateful. I've done everything for you girls." Rachel felt a bitter laugh escape her lips. "No, Mom. You've done everything for her." She walked to her room, grabbed her bag, and started throwing things into it. Clothes, her laptop, a few essentials. Her father called after her, confused, but she didn't stop. She couldn't stay another minute in that house. When she reached the door, her mother said, "Where are you going?" Rachel turned back, her voice steady now. "Somewhere I can breathe." She left the house without looking back. The night air was cold, but it felt cleaner than anything she'd felt inside those walls. For the first time in her life, Rachel understood what betrayal really felt like. Not when a stranger hurts you, but when the people who claim to love you the most are the ones who twist the knife. As she drove away, her tears finally came. But beneath the heartbreak, something stronger started to grow. A quiet promise that she would rebuild her life without needing any of them again. Rachel drove aimlessly through the quiet streets, her vision blurred by tears. The world outside was dark and empty, but it still felt safer than the house she had just left. Her heart was pounding, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She wasn't just angry, she was broken. She had spent her whole life trying to make her mother proud, and now she realized that no matter how hard she worked, she would never be enough. She parked the car on a quiet street and let herself cry. The kind of cry that comes from deep inside, the kind that makes your chest hurt. She thought about every time she had stayed up late studying, every job she'd lost sleep over, every moment she had imagined her mother cheering for her. And now it all seemed like a lie. Her mother's love had always come with conditions, and Rachel finally saw it for what it was. Hours passed before she finally pulled herself together enough to think about where she could go. She had no job, no place to stay, and no strength left to face anyone. Then one name came to her mind, Tina. Her best friend since college, the only person who had ever truly understood her. Without thinking twice, she started driving toward Tina's apartment. When she knocked on the door, Tina opened it in her pajamas, her hair messy, clearly half asleep. The moment she saw Rachel's tear-streaked face, she didn't ask questions. She just said softly, "Come in." Rachel walked in and collapsed on the couch, covering her face with her hands. Tina sat beside her and waited until Rachel could speak. When the words finally came, they tumbled out between sobs. The job, the call, the betrayal, the dinner table scene. Tina listened quietly, her eyes full of sympathy, but also something stronger, anger on Rachel's behalf. When Rachel finished, she whispered, "I don't even know who I am anymore. Everything I worked for is gone." Tina put a hand on her shoulder and said, "You're still you, Rach. They didn't take that away. You don't get revenge by shouting or crying. You get it by rising, by showing them you can do it without them." Those words hit Rachel hard. For the first time that night, she stopped crying. Something in her chest began to shift, a small spark of determination breaking through the pain. Maybe she couldn't change what her mother did. Maybe she couldn't make her feel regret. But she could take control of her own life again. That night, Rachel slept on Tina's couch, exhausted but strangely calm. The pain was still there, but now it came with purpose. She promised herself that this was not where her story would end. She would rebuild, not to prove herself to her mother or her sister, but to prove to herself that she could rise from what they tried to destroy. The morning after she left home, Rachel woke up in Tina's apartment feeling lost. She had no plan, no job, and no idea where to start. But she remembered Tina's words from the night before. "You don't get revenge by shouting, you get it by rising." Those words stuck in her head like a quiet challenge. A few days later, Rachel started looking for work again. Most companies she applied to either ignored her or said they'd filled their positions. She didn't blame them, her confidence was low, and she felt like a failure. Then one morning, she saw a small online post from a new startup looking for temporary help with their marketing. It wasn't the big dream job she had once hoped for, but it was something. She took it. The company was small, just a few people working out of a shared office space. But it gave Rachel a chance to use her skills. She started with small tasks, managing emails, designing posts, writing ad ideas. but she gave each one her best effort. She stayed late most nights, double-checking her work, trying to learn everything she could. Slowly, her efforts began to get noticed. Her boss, a kind woman named Laura, started trusting her with bigger projects. When one of the company's campaigns needed a fresh idea, Rachel stepped forward and presented her plan. It was bold and creative, something no one expected. The campaign went live and, within weeks, it became a huge success. Their small startup suddenly got attention from local media and new clients. Laura called Rachel into her office and said, "I've never seen anyone work like you do. I want you to lead the marketing team." For the first time in a long while, Rachel smiled, a real proud smile. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was rebuilding. As months passed, her work caught national attention. People began talking about her strategies and ideas. She was invited to speak at small business events and even featured in a marketing blog. It felt surreal. The girl who had been told she wasn't enough was now being recognized for her talent. Then one afternoon, Rachel received an email that made her heart stop. It was from Brightwave Marketing, the same company she had once dreamed of joining, the same company her mother had taken from her. They had seen her recent work and wanted to discuss a senior position. She sat there for a while, staring at the screen. The irony of it all hit her. The company that once turned her away because of her mother's lies was now asking her to come work for them. But this time, she wasn't the same girl who had cried in her car. She was stronger, sharper, and no longer desperate for approval. Rachel replied to the email with calm confidence, setting a meeting date. As she hit send, she felt something deep inside her shift again, a quiet, steady pride. She had risen from the betrayal, not just to prove herself, but to show that no one could take away what she was meant to build. Rachel walked into the glass building of Brightwave on a crisp Monday morning, the same company she once dreamed of joining, the same place that had been taken from her. This time, she wasn't nervous or unsure. She felt calm, confident, and ready. She had earned this moment, not because of anyone's help, but because she had rebuilt herself from nothing. As she stepped out of the elevator, the sight of the familiar logo on the wall made her pause for a second. She remembered the email that crushed her dreams months ago, and the night she cried in her car. But now, she wasn't that broken girl anymore. She straightened her shoulders and walked through the hallway. And that's when she saw her. Lily. Her sister was standing by the meeting room, holding a stack of papers, her expression tight and anxious. Her clothes were wrinkled, her eyes tired. It was clear something was wrong. Rachel didn't say anything. She just watched from a distance as a group of employees whispered nearby. The whispers were about Lily, about the campaigns that had failed, the deadlines she had missed, and the clients who had complained. When Lily noticed Rachel, her face froze. For a second, neither of them moved. Then Lily forced a weak smile. "You're working here now?" she asked, her voice uncertain. Rachel nodded slowly. "Senior marketing consultant," she said. Her tone was polite, not proud. She didn't need to rub it in. The situation spoke for itself. A few minutes later, Rachel was called into a meeting with the department head, the same man who had once told her they had to move forward with another candidate. He greeted her warmly this time, shaking her hand with a big smile. "Rachel, it's great to finally have you here," he said. "I've been following your work from the startup. You've got real talent. Honestly, we should have chosen you from the start." Rachel smiled slightly. "I guess everything happens for a reason," she said quietly. He went on to explain that she would be overseeing several major projects, including one that Lily's team had recently failed. It was an awkward coincidence, but Rachel didn't let it show. She kept her focus on her work, ignoring the tension in the air. Over the next few days, Rachel settled into her role easily. Her ideas were sharp, her strategies worked, and her results spoke for themselves. Meanwhile, Lily's performance continued to fall apart. Rumors spread that she was under review, and her team members were frustrated with her leadership. Rachel never gloated. She didn't need to. She came in early, worked hard, and left quietly. But inside, she felt something powerful, peace. Not the kind that comes from revenge, but from justice. One afternoon, as Rachel was leaving the office, she passed Lily's desk. Her sister looked up, eyes tired and full of regret. For a moment, Rachel almost felt sorry for her. Then she remembered everything that had happened. The lies, the betrayal, the phone call that took away her dream. She gave Lily a polite nod and walked away, her heart calm. This time, she wasn't the one left behind. That night, after a long day at work, Rachel got home and dropped her bag on the couch. She made herself a cup of tea and sat by the window, enjoying the quiet. Her first week at Brightwave had gone better than she expected. The team respected her, her ideas were working, and for the first time in a long while, she felt at peace. Just as she was about to relax, her phone started buzzing. The screen showed a name she hadn't seen in weeks, Mom. For a moment, Rachel thought about ignoring it. But curiosity got the better of her, and she answered. Her mother's voice came through quickly, the same soft but commanding tone she'd used all her life. Rachel, honey, I heard you're working at Brightwave again. Lily told me. Rachel stayed silent for a moment, waiting for what would come next. Her mother didn't disappoint. She's having a tough time there, she continued. Her manager isn't being fair, and she might lose her job. Can you talk to someone? Maybe help her keep it. Rachel took a slow breath. She could feel the old anger rising again. The memory of that night, the email, her mother's calm face when she'd given her dream away. It all came rushing back. Finally, she spoke, her voice steady. Like how you helped me lose mine? There was silence on the other end. Her mother didn't respond right away. Rachel could almost hear her breathing, like she was trying to find an excuse, but this time, there was none. Rachel, her mother finally said, her tone softening. You know I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just trying to do what was best for both of you. Lily wasn't doing well back then. Rachel let out a small, tired laugh. No, Mom. You did what was best for her. You've always done what's best for her. Her mother tried again, her voice trembling slightly. Can't we just move past this? She's your sister. She needs your help. Rachel closed her eyes. She could picture Lily sitting next to her mother, maybe even listening in, waiting for Rachel to give in like she always did. But that version of Rachel, the one who bent, who forgave too easily, didn't exist anymore. This time, she said quietly, I'm not saving anyone. I'm saving myself. The line went silent again. For the first time, her mother had nothing to say. Rachel didn't feel guilt or sadness, just peace. She finally understood that walking away wasn't cruel. It was necessary. After she hung up, she looked out the window again. The city lights flickered in the distance, a reminder of how far she had come. She had built herself back up from the ground, without her mother, without Lily, without anyone to lean on. And now, she wasn't going to let anyone pull her down again. That night, Rachel finally felt free, not because she had hurt them back, but because she had chosen herself for the first time in her life. A few weeks later, word spread through the office that Lily had been called into a final meeting with management. Everyone already knew what it meant. Her projects had failed, clients had complained, and her team had grown frustrated with her leadership. By the end of the day, the news was official. Lily had been let go from Brightwave. Rachel found out when an email went out about department changes. She sat at her desk for a long moment, not feeling anger or satisfaction, just quiet understanding. What had happened wasn't revenge. It was simply the result of choices made by everyone involved. That evening, her phone rang again. Her mother's name appeared on the screen, but Rachel didn't pick up. The next morning, she called again, and again the day after that. Finally, Rachel listened to one of the voicemails. Her mother's voice was sharp, angry. How could you let this happen to your sister? You could have helped her. You work there. You could have talked to someone. Rachel deleted the message and went back to work. She had learned to protect her peace. She wasn't going to explain herself anymore. She wasn't the same person who used to beg for her mother's approval. A week later, another voicemail came, but this one sounded different. Her mother's voice was softer, slower. Rachel, I'm sorry, she said. Maybe I went too far before. I just wanted both of you to succeed. Please, can we talk? Rachel didn't respond to that one either. She knew it wasn't about real regret. It was about guilt. Her mother had never admitted she was wrong before, and now that Lily was struggling, she was finally realizing the damage she had done. But it was too late. Some things couldn't be fixed with a few words. Rachel threw herself into her work. Her projects were succeeding, and her reputation in the industry was growing. She moved into a small but beautiful apartment downtown, her own space, built entirely from her own effort. Every piece of furniture, every picture on the wall reminded her that she had built this life herself. No one had handed it to her. On weekends, she would sit by her window, watching the city lights, thinking about how far she had come. Sometimes she felt a small ache in her chest, not for her sister, but for the family she wished she'd had. A family that believed in fairness and love instead of favoritism and guilt. Her mother kept trying for months, calling, texting, even sending letters, but Rachel never replied. She had nothing left to say. The silence between them said everything that needed to be said. And as the days passed, the guilt began to weigh on her mother. Friends told Rachel that her mother wasn't the same anymore, that she'd stopped talking proudly about her daughters, that she looked tired and older. But Rachel didn't go back. She had learned the hardest truth. Sometimes peace comes only when you stop trying to fix what broke you. For Rachel, that silence wasn't coldness. It was freedom. A year passed, and Rachel's life looked completely different. Her days were filled with meetings, creative sessions, and plans for her own marketing agency, the one she built from scratch. She named it Wave, a quiet nod to the company that once took everything from her. It started small, but her drive and talent drew clients quickly. Within months, her agency was known for its bold ideas and results-driven campaigns. One morning, her assistant walked in with surprising news. Brightwave Marketing wanted to collaborate with her agency on a major project. Rachel smiled softly. Life really had a way of coming full circle. The same company that once believed her mother's lie now saw her as a respected leader and partner. There was no anger left in her, only calm satisfaction. When she attended the first joint meeting, several Brightwave executives greeted her warmly. None of them mentioned the past, and neither did she. But deep down, Rachel knew they remembered. She could see it in their expressions, that slight mix of regret and admiration. It wasn't about proving anyone wrong anymore. It was about living the life she had earned. Her mother still tried to reach out sometimes, usually around the holidays. Rachel never picked up the phone, but she didn't block her either. She had forgiven her in silence, though she knew they would never be close again. Forgiveness didn't mean trust. It meant letting go of the burden. One afternoon, Rachel sat in her office, looking out at the city skyline, and decided to send her mother a message. Not a long one, not emotional, just something simple and final. She picked out a plain postcard with a picture of Denver and wrote, "You taught me that family can betray you, but also that strength is something you build alone." Then she signed it, Rachel, and dropped it in the mailbox. It wasn't meant to hurt her mother. It was meant to close the door gently. A full stop at the end of a long, painful sentence. That evening, she met her team to celebrate landing a new contract, another major client who admired her leadership and creativity. They laughed, toasted, and shared stories late into the night. As Rachel looked around, she realized she finally had what she'd always wanted. Not approval, but respect. Not family by blood, but people who genuinely valued her. Later, walking home under the city lights, Rachel felt peaceful for the first time in years. There was no need for revenge, no bitterness left to carry. The best revenge had already happened. She had rebuilt her life, and she had done it without anyone's help. At home, she placed the postcard's duplicate copy in her journal, beside a note she once wrote to herself when everything fell apart. One day, they'll see what they lost. Now, that note didn't matter anymore. She smiled, closed the journal, and whispered to herself, they already did. And that quiet victory, her success, her peace, her independence, was the truest form of closure she could ever ask for.